Evelyn Walsh was completely lost in Matteo Gallagher's kiss inside the car. Her clothes had been stripped away while he remained impeccably dressed. The stark contrast between them made her flush with embarrassment. Matteo wrapped an arm around her waist, pulling her closer as he whispered with a low chuckle, "The partition is up. The driver can't hear anything, and he wouldn't dare to anyway. What are you so shy about, him?" Evelyn's heart swelled with affection as she watched the usually reserved man's movement grow rougher, just as waves of pleasure surged through her, sending her to the edge. An unexpected ringtone shattered the moment. Being interrupted like this made Matteo frown in irritation, but when he saw the caller ID, he still answered. Through her ragged breaths, Evelyn caught sight of the name on the screen. It was his closest friend, Alex Hall. "Matteo, have you lost your—" Matteo's expression darkened as he cut him off in perfect Haranese. "It's inconvenient now. Speak in Haranese." There was a deep inhale on the other end before Alex finally responded in Haranese. "Did you really get legally married to Rebecca? What are you thinking? Years ago, you went blind saving her, and she repaid you by leaving you at your lowest and running off with another man. She nearly ruined you, and now you're getting back together with her?" Evelyn's mind instantly translated the unfamiliar words. As she processed them, an unbearable chill spread through her body, making her feel like she had fallen into an ice-cold abyss. Matteo didn't notice her reaction. "If I don't marry her, the Pittman family will force her to wed some old man. I can't stand by and let that happen to her." "Then what about Evelyn? She was the one by your side when you were blind. She's been with you for years, loving you so much that she might as well have handed you her heart. All of us have seen it." Alex's barely concealed fury was evident in his tone, but Matteo remained indifferent. "I'll find a way to keep it from her. She'll never know. How long do you think you can hide it? Forever? Isn't Evelyn expecting you to marry her?" The more Alex spoke, the more irritated Matteo became. His voice turned sharper. "Keep this marriage a secret. Don't tell anyone. I'll prepare a fake marriage certificate for Eve in a while." With that, he ended the call without giving Alex a chance to say more. Lowering his gaze, Matteo tossed the phone aside and resumed his activity on Evelyn's body. Evelyn trembled uncontrollably. When their passion finally peaked and they began dressing, she parted her lips to speak. However, before she could, his phone buzzed again. It was a distinct notification sound. Matteo picked up his phone, glanced at the screen, and then instructed the driver to stop. "Eve, something urgent came up at the company. I need you to get out and take a cab home, okay?" She didn't say a word. She only nodded silently and opened the car door. The sleek black Maybach sped off like a bolt of lightning. Standing on the sidewalk, Evelyn stared blankly at the busy street, unable to hold back anymore. Tears poured down her face. No one knew that she had already learned Haranese long ago, just to bridge the gap between her and Matteo. She understood every single word he and Alex had exchanged. Each sentence echoed in her ears like a sharp dagger piercing her heart. Along with the shattering of her love, long-buried memories came rushing back. Matteo was born into wealth and power, while she was the maid's daughter. That year, she had followed her mother into the Gallagher's grand mansion for the first time and saw him playing the piano in the sunlight. She had never heard such beautiful music before or seen such a breathtakingly handsome boy. With just one glance, Matteo's name became permanently etched in her heart. She never told anyone about the person she secretly loved, and it wasn't just because of the impossible gap between their social statuses, but also because she knew Matteo already had someone he loved. Her name was Rebecca Pittman. She was his childhood sweetheart, that he had never hidden his feelings for her, treating her like the most precious treasure, keeping her close to his heart. At 17, he even lost his sight in a car accident while saving Rebecca. But from that day on, Rebecca disappeared. She never set foot in the Gallagher estate again, choosing instead to date someone else. The Gallaghers had other heirs, and Matteo's parents were too busy with their business empire to care for their newly blind son, that he was sent to the old estate and left to fend for himself. It was Evelyn who volunteered to transfer there, tending to him day and night for 7 years. 23, she even knelt outside a renowned doctor's house for 3 days and nights, begging him to come out of retirement and cure her. Matteo's blindness. When Matteo regained his sight, he soared back to the top, reclaiming his position as the heir to the Gallagher group. She was the only one by his side through every season. She was the one who stayed up with him through endless nights. She was the one who endured those difficult 7 years with him. She was the one he kissed, the one he held, the one he slept with. However, she never expected that once he regained control, the first thing he would do was marry Rebecca, the woman who had abandoned him. For years, she worked tirelessly to keep up with his pace, to become worthy of standing by his side. Yet, no matter how much she changed, his parents still thought she wasn't good enough for their son. They had tried to pay her off multiple times to make her leave. Matteo always fought against his family for her, wanting to stay by his side. She never once considered leaving. That was all until today. Evelyn didn't want to stay anymore. So, she wiped her tears, took out her phone, and dialed a number. "Mrs. Gallagher, I'll take the $5 million. I'll leave Matteo forever." On the other end of the line, Caroline Olsen was instantly thrilled to hear those words. "You've finally come to your senses? Good. It's about time. You're just a maid's daughter. How could you ever be worthy of marrying my son, the heir to the Gallagher family? Where are you now? Get over here immediately, so we can sign the contract." Evelyn glanced at the address Caroline sent in a rush, and let out a self-mocking smile before hailing a cab. When she arrived at the cafe, Caroline bombarded her with questions. Evelyn answered each one calmly. Satisfied, Caroline pulled out an agreement and slid it across the table. "We'll put this in black and white. Once you sign, there's no turning back. After you sign, I'll immediately wire half of the money into your account. You'll get the other half the day you leave. But you have to promise that once you take the money, you'll never, ever appear in front of Matteo again. Do you understand?" Evelyn trembled slightly as she stared at the staggering amount written on the document. She had no intention of ever showing up in his life again. Not in this lifetime. Not in the next. So, without hesitation, she picked up the pen and signed her name in one swift motion. Only then did Caroline finally relax. She put away the contract and stood up, giving a final reminder. "I'm giving you 2 weeks. You can change your name, leave the country, or do whatever you want. Just make sure Matteo never sees you again." "I understand, Mrs. Gallagher. You don't have to worry." After watching Caroline leave, Evelyn headed home. Ensuring Matteo never saw her again would be simple. The Gallagher family had a long history of political and military ties. And because of their unique background, 3 generations of the family had been barred from leaving the country, that if she immigrated, he would never be able to find her. She spent half the night researching immigration options before finally deciding on moving to Algeria. Once her decision was made, Evelyn picked up her phone to check the time, only to see a new social media notification. She clicked on it. Rebecca had just posted a photo collage. The first 3 images were of her holding a bouquet of roses. The center ones displayed 3 marriage certificates, and the last set showed 2 interlocked hands, fingers tightly intertwined. Evelyn knew that if Matteo wanted to keep his marriage a secret, he would never have allowed Rebecca to post these. But she had, and she had made sure that only Evelyn could see it. It was a deliberate taunt. Evelyn played along and liked the post. As soon as she exited the app, she received a message from Matteo. "Eve, I have to go on a business trip. I won't be home for the next few days." She replied with a simple okay, put down her phone, and went to freshen up. The next morning, Evelyn got up early to start her immigration paperwork. Since she was in a hurry, she paid for expedited processing. The immigration officer assured her that everything would be finalized within 2 weeks, and she finally let out a breath of relief. As she got into the car, another post from Rebecca popped up on her feed. This time, Matteo was partially in the frame. The 2 of them were holding hands, touring what appeared to be their new home. The caption confirmed it. They had just settled on a house in Southborough Heights. Evelyn liked the post, just as she had done before. On the 3rd day, she went to the office and officially resigned. When she returned home with her belongings, she checked social media again. Rebecca had posted yet another update. This time, she was wearing a wedding dress, a massive diamond ring glinting on her finger. Like clockwork, Evelyn tapped the heart icon and then buried herself under the blankets. By the fourth day, she woke up to yet another post. This time, it was a close-up of a framed wedding photo hanging inside their new home. Evelyn stared at it for a long moment before finally snapping out of it. On the other end of the line, Caroline Olsen was instantly thrilled to hear those words. "You finally come to your senses? Good. It's about time. You're just a maid's daughter. How could you ever be worthy of marrying my son, the heir to the Gallagher family? Where are you now? Get over here immediately, so we can sign the contract." Evelyn glanced at the address Caroline sent in a rush and let out a self-mocking smile before hailing a cab. When she arrived at the cafe, Caroline bombarded her with questions. Evelyn answered each one calmly. Satisfied, Caroline pulled out an agreement and slid it across the table. "We'll put this in black and white. Once you sign, there's no turning back. After you sign, I'll immediately wire half of the money into your account. You'll get the other half the day you leave. But you have to promise that once you take the money, you'll never, ever appear in front of Matteo again. Do you understand?" Evelyn trembled slightly as she stared at the staggering amount written on the document. She had no intention of ever showing up in his life again. Not in this lifetime. Not in the next. So, without hesitation, she picked up the pen and signed her name in one swift motion. Only then did Caroline finally relax. She put away the contract and stood up, giving a final reminder. "I'm giving you 2 weeks. You can change your name, leave the country, or do whatever you want. Just make sure Matteo never sees you again." "I understand, Mrs. Gallagher. You don't have to worry." After watching Caroline leave, Evelyn headed home. Ensuring Matteo never saw her again would be simple. The Gallagher family had a long history of political and military ties, and because of their unique background, 3 generations of the family had been barred from leaving the country. That if she immigrated, he would never be able to find her. She spent half the night researching immigration options before finally deciding on moving to Algeria. Once her decision was made, Evelyn picked up her phone to check the time, only to see a new social media notification. She clicked on it. Rebecca had just posted a photo collage. The first 3 images were of her holding a bouquet of roses. The center ones displayed 3 marriage certificates, and the last set showed 2 interlocked hands, fingers tightly intertwined. Evelyn knew that if Matteo wanted to keep his marriage a secret, he would never have allowed Rebecca to post these. But she had, and she had made sure that only Evelyn could see it. It was a deliberate taunt. Evelyn played along and liked the post. As soon as she exited the app, she received a message from Matteo. "Eve, I have to go on a business trip. I won't be home for the next few days." She replied with a simple okay, put down her phone, and went to freshen up. The next morning, Evelyn got up early to start her immigration paperwork. Since she was in a hurry, she paid for expedited processing. The immigration officer assured her that everything would be finalized within 2 weeks, and she finally let out a breath of relief. As she got into the car, another post from Rebecca popped up on her feed. This time, Matteo was partially in the frame. The 2 of them were holding hands, touring what appeared to be their new home. The caption confirmed it. They had just settled on a house in Southborough Heights. Evelyn liked the post, just as she had done before. On the 3rd day, she went to the office and officially resigned. When she returned home with her belongings, she checked social media again. Rebecca had posted yet another update. This time, she was wearing a wedding dress, a massive diamond ring glinting on her finger. Like clockwork, Evelyn tapped the heart icon and then buried herself under the blankets. By the 4th day, she woke up to yet another post. This time, it was a close-up of a framed wedding photo hanging inside their new home. Evelyn stared at it for a long moment before finally snapping out of it. She liked the post again, then got dressed and went out for a farewell dinner with her closest friends. That evening, she returned home with several suitcases and began clearing out everything related to Matteo. She threw away every gift he had given her, their matching toothbrushes and mugs, and the countless photos they had taken together. By the time she was done, it was already past midnight. She was just about to turn off the lights when Matteo unexpectedly returned. The moment he stepped inside and saw how empty the place was, he froze, frowning deeply. Why does it feel like half the stuff is missing? I didn't like them anymore, so I threw them out. I'll buy new things later. Matteo nodded and tossed his jacket onto the couch. As he did, his eyes landed on the suitcases. You quit your job. His gaze then shifted to the document resting on the coffee table. Why do you have your residence registry out? I'm exhausted. I just needed a break, so I resigned. And as for the residence registry, I have some paperwork to take care of. Evelyn answered casually as she put her things away. Seeing how calm she was, Matteo didn't overthink it. He pulled her into his arms, his voice gentle. I've been busy these past few days and haven't had time for you. Your birthday is coming up soon. Tomorrow, I'll take you to the auction and let you pick out a gift. Evelyn didn't refuse. The next day, as soon as they took their seats in the auction hall, Evelyn spotted Rebecca. She sauntered over confidently and took the seat right next to Matteo. All night, Matteo kept his head turned toward Evelyn, speaking only to her. Not once did he glance at Rebecca. When the event ended, he didn't linger. He took Evelyn's hand and led her straight out of the building. Before heading home, Evelyn stopped by the restroom. As she exited, she saw Rebecca trapped in the stairwell, surrounded by a group of leering men. Well, if it isn't Ms. Pittman. You dished Matteo when he needed you the most, and now look at you. Maybe it is karma. I heard your father is marrying you off to some old fossil on his deathbed. But hey, you've still got a pretty face. Why not come with us instead? We'd be happy to. Before the man could finish his sentence, he was cut off. Matteo appeared at the top of the stairs, his face dark with fury. The next second, he kicked the guy straight to the ground. Matteo pinned the group's leader to the ground and landed punch after punch, showing no mercy until they were all bloodied and begging for forgiveness. We're sorry, Mr. Gallagher. We messed up. Please have mercy and let us go. Get lost. If I ever catch you near her again, you'll regret it, he barked, his fury sending them scrambling away, practically tripping over themselves. A crowd had gathered in the stairwell, watching the scene unfold. Ignoring the prying eyes, Matteo helped Rebecca to her feet. Are you hurt? Rebecca threw herself into his arms, tears streaming down her face like a damsel in distress. I twisted my ankle. It hurt so bad. Matteo's expression darkened. Without hesitation, he scooped her up in his arms, pushing through the crowd as he strode away. In his haste to shield Rebecca, he accidentally shoved Evelyn aside. Her head slammed against the hard stair, and a gash opened up, blood trickling down, shocking the onlookers. You're bleeding. Someone call 911. Pain shot through Evelyn's body, cold sweat breaking out across her skin. The warm blood seeped between her fingers, dripping onto her lashes, feeling unbearably heavy. She watched Matteo leave without so much as a backward glance, and bitterness filled her mouth. She thought back to when she used to cut her fingers while making soup for him. He would fuss over her endlessly, insisting on calling a doctor, afraid that she would have a scar. She used to laugh at how dramatic he was, but he would always kiss her hand softly and say, Eve, you're the one I cherish the most. If you get hurt, it hurts me even more. Our life is better now. You don't need to do these things anymore. Your hands should be wearing the ring I give you, not covered in scars. Now she was hurt, and he didn't even see it. And the ring he had promised her was now on someone else's finger. The ambulance took Evelyn to the hospital. She checked herself in, got treated, picked up her medication, and finally made it home in the dead of night. That night, the pain kept her awake, tossing and turning. Matteo never came home. The next morning, as she dragged herself out of bed to change her bandages, she saw Rebecca's new social media post. That it was a video of Matteo kneeling on one knee, gently massaging her ankle and applying medicine. Evelyn watched it over and over, her eyes turning red. Before she realized it, she had fallen asleep. By the time she woke up, night had fallen. Her phone buzzed non-stop on the pillow beside her. As soon as she answered, Matteo's voice came through. Riverdale, room 703. Get here now. Evelyn hesitated for a moment before getting up. She freshened up and headed over. The moment she stepped into the private room, her eyes landed on Rebecca. Rebecca's eyes were red, making her look like a fragile little bunny, all pitiful and wronged. Matteo sat there in silence, watching Evelyn with an unreadable expression. The tension in the room stretched until Evelyn finally broke it. "You called me here. What do you want?" Matteo straightened his posture, interlocking his fingers with an air of authority. "Eve, were those thugs last night sent by you to mess with Rebecca?" Evelyn froze. She instinctively glanced at Rebecca, catching the fleeting smirk in her eyes. In that instant, she understood everything. Rebecca had staged it all. A bitter smile curved her lips. "It wasn't me. I don't know them, and I have no interest in doing something like that." Matteo's face didn't soften at her denial. He lowered his gaze and spoke evenly. "Eve, the moment Rebecca abandoned me all those years ago, I let her go. You've been with me for 7 years. You should know who I care about now. The Pittman family has fallen, and anyone can kick them while they're down. But that person shouldn't be you. You don't have to stoop to this." Evelyn felt like she had been punched in the gut. She thought back to the nights he had poured his pain into her arms, the days they had run from doctor to doctor searching for a cure, the moment when he had been wrongly told he would be blind for life. She still remembered the despair in his eyes. A man who had once stood above the rest was now utterly broken over a woman. 7 years. They shared 7 years of struggles. Now, he dismissed it all as if it had never happened. Her mind flashed to the image of his marriage certificate with Rebecca, and that stamp sealing away all their years together. Tears welled in her eyes. "Yeah," she murmured, her voice trembling. 7 years. And I'm just now realizing who you really care about." Matteo's gaze sharpened. "What do you mean by that?" Evelyn shook her head, letting out a self-deprecating laugh. "I mean, I'm just a maid's daughter. How could I possibly have the power or connections to send those guys after her?" Even as she laid it all out in front of him, Matteo still didn't believe her. Evelyn was exhausted. She took a deep breath and gave up. "If you don't believe me, then let's cut to the chase. What do you want me to do?" Matteo pinched the bridge of his nose. "Apologize, Eve. If you've done something wrong, you should say sorry." Before Evelyn could respond, Rebecca, who had been sitting there looking pitiful, suddenly spoke up. "Forget the apology. If you really feel bad, then just drink all this alcohol." The table was filled with amber-colored whiskey. Evelyn lifted her gaze and looked at Matteo, waiting for his definite response. But the dim lighting obscured his expression. In the overwhelming silence, Evelyn felt like she was suffocating. She panted heavily, her mind flooded with memories. Back when she first moved into the Gallagher estate, Matteo, unable to see, drowned himself in alcohol every day. She worried about his health and tried to stop him, but he never listened. One time, after getting drunk, he let out a cold laugh and pushed several bottles of alcohol toward her. "Now, even a maid's daughter dares to tell me what to do? Have I really fallen this low? Fine. If you drink all of these, I'll listen to you." Evelyn wanted to tell him that wasn't her intention. She wasn't trying to control him. She was worried about him. So, even though she was allergic to alcohol, she didn't hesitate for a second. She grabbed a bottle and drank it down. Within minutes, she had to be rushed to the hospital. When she woke up, she saw him sitting by her bedside, his face dark with anger. "I'm the one who was drunk, not you. You knew you were allergic to alcohol. Why would you risk your life like that?" Evelyn had only one response. "Because I was worried about you, Mr. Gallagher. Your eyesight will return eventually. And even if it doesn't, I'll stay with you for the rest of my life. So please don't give up on yourself, okay?" From that day forward, Matteo quit drinking. For years, there wasn't a single bottle of alcohol in the house. As these memories surfaced, Evelyn laughed, but there was a glimmer of tears in her eyes. She didn't explain anything. Instead, she reached for the bottle of soda sitting nearby and dumped it into her drink. Her voice was firm. "This alone isn't enough to show my sincerity. I'll punish myself further. Will that be enough?" Without waiting for a response, she picked up the glass and tilted her head back, downing one after another. The fiery, bitter burn slid down her throat, spreading through her stomach, sinking into a place even deeper. Her heart beat by the 7th glass. Matteo finally couldn't take it anymore. "That's enough." Evelyn looked at the dozen untouched glasses still on the table and smiled. "That's it? So does this count as my apology? Have I done enough to make your beloved sweetheart happy?" At those words, Matteo shot up from his seat, gripping her wrist. His usually unreadable expression had darkened to something stormy, almost dangerous. You know that's not what I meant, Eve. I told you Rebecca and I are over. The Gallagher family won't accept you. If you pull stunts like this, people will use them against you. I just don't want to see you getting hurt or criticized. Matteo's words sounded firm, logical even. But Evelyn just laughed. The Gallagher family wouldn't accept her, the daughter of a maid. But did he really think they would welcome someone like Rebecca? A woman who repaid kindness with betrayal? And yet, no matter how impossible the odds, as long as Rebecca said the word, Matteo still married her, didn't he? Excuses. Every rejection, every refusal, and every argument were all just excuses. The truth was simple. He just didn't love her enough. Evelyn didn't want to waste any more breath. She yanked her wrist free and turned to leave. But just as she reached the door, her vision blurred, and she collapsed. Eve! Matteo's chest tightened as he rushed forward, catching her in his arms. Without hesitation, he turned to leave. Before he could take a step, Rebecca grabbed his sleeve, her voice trembling. Matteo, I feel a little dizzy. Matteo froze. For a moment, just a few seconds, he hesitated. Then he shook her off and strode away, leaving behind a single sentence. I'm taking Eve to the hospital. Call my assistant if you need help. When Evelyn woke up, she was in a hospital bed. Matteo, who hadn't slept all night, finally exhaled in relief when he saw her open her eyes. The two of them stared at each other for a long time, neither speaking. After a moment, Matteo poured her a glass of water, tucked the blanket around her, and went to call the doctor for a checkup. He listened carefully to every instruction, memorizing each detail. His secretary had already reminded him multiple times that he had important meetings to attend, but he pushed them all back. Watching his assistant standing at the door, visibly anxious, Evelyn finally spoke. You should go. I can take care of myself. This isn't something you should be doing. Matteo paused, apple half-peeled. His voice was slow, deliberate. I should be doing this, Eve. Did you forget? Back then, you did the same for me. Evelyn's eyes flickered with a distant emotion. Back then, when Matteo lost his sight, he had been discarded like a broken chess piece. But she had stayed. She taught herself Braille just to help him read. She attended classes with him, took him outside to sit in the sun, cooked his favorite meals back then. It felt like she had stolen a piece of the moon, bringing its light into their world. For 7 years, in all the darkness, she had found happiness. However, the moon was never hers to keep. And the past? The past was a place she could never return to. That afternoon, the doctor took Evelyn for further tests. Half an hour later, a nurse helped her back to her room. As soon as she opened the door, she saw Matteo standing there, her phone in his hand, frowning. His voice was ice cold as he spoke into the receiver. I've already told you. Eve and I are together. We love each other. I don't care about her background. Stop wasting your time. I will marry her. And she won't leave me. Hearing the door open, he lifted his head and met her gaze. A second later, Caroline's confused voice rang from the phone's speaker. What do you mean she won't leave? Matteo, didn't you know? Evelyn already agreed to go abroad. The conversation came to an abrupt halt. Evelyn, her steps unsteady, walked forward and snatched her phone back, ending the call. Matteo stared at her in shock, not understanding why she was so worked up. What's wrong? Seeing his confusion, she knew he hadn't heard the rest of what Caroline had said. She let out a quiet sigh of relief, averted her gaze, and tried to sound as calm as possible. Nothing. I just don't want you guys fighting over me anymore. For the past few weeks, the Gallagher family had been making a fuss about him being with Evelyn, constantly trying to break them up. Matteo had argued with them several times over it. Hearing her say that, Matteo didn't press further and instead asked about her test results. The doctor said it's nothing serious. I can be discharged. For the next few days at home, Matteo barely left the house, staying by Evelyn's side. She wasn't as lively as before, no longer smiling as much. Most of the time, she just sat in a corner, staring off into space, looking uninterested in everything. Matteo couldn't figure out what was wrong. He tried holding her, hoping to comfort her, but she just got up and went back to the bedroom. I'm not feeling well. I'm going to rest for a bit." Watching her walk away, Matteo was caught off guard that he thought she was still upset about the apology incident. So he had his assistant prepare a surprise for her on her birthday. He threw a party in her honor. Out of respect for Matteo, most people from their social circle showed up. They were polite to Evelyn when Matteo was around. But at the moment he stepped away, they gathered in small groups, whispering and making snide remarks. "If it weren't for Mr. Gallagher, I wouldn't be caught dead at a maid's daughter's birthday party. It's just embarrassing. I don't even get what he sees in her. Look at that cheap, small-town vibe. It makes me sick. Mr. Gallagher is just being noble, that's all. If it were me, I'd just throw her some cash and be done with it. But marrying her? That'd be a disgrace to the Gallagher name." Even though she was supposed to be the center of attention, Evelyn stood alone, completely ignored. Hearing the insults and mockery from all sides, she just felt exhausted that if it weren't for the fact that leaving too early would make Matteo suspicious, she wouldn't have come at all. The deliberate isolation made every minute unbearable. Then at exactly 7 p.m., the atmosphere in the ballroom suddenly shifted. The entire room turned toward the entrance, their disdain instantly replaced with eager flattery. In their world, news traveled fast. Everyone had heard about Matteo getting into a fight over Rebecca not long ago. Now seeing him walk in, they rushed to suck up to him. "Mr. Gallagher, so you left earlier to go pick up Miss Pittman? After all these years, your bond is still so strong." Well, of course. They grew up together. They're childhood sweethearts. Just look at Miss Pittman. She has such elegance and grace. She and Mr. Gallagher are a perfect match. As speculations ran wild, Evelyn turned to see Rebecca walking in, her arm hooked through Matteo's. She was dressed in a stunning designer gown and a dazzling diamond necklace, emphasizing her elegant posture. Her delicate, refined features exuded an air of privilege and luxury. Even standing next to Matteo, with his naturally imposing presence, she didn't seem overshadowed in the slightest. For no reason at all, an image flashed in Evelyn's mind. It was the faceless sketch Matteo had once drawn after regaining his sight. Back then, he had brushed it off as just a random doodle. She had thought it was beautiful but didn't think much of it. But now, looking at Rebecca, she finally understood who had been in that drawing. This wasn't a case of lost love finding its way back. It was love that had never faded. Evelyn lowered her gaze and turned away in silence. However, before she could leave, Rebecca called out to her. "Ms. Walsh, I heard it's your birthday today. I hope you don't mind me showing up uninvited." At her cue, someone led in a small snow-white puppy. "Its name is Elmo. Isn't it adorable?" As the fluffy puppy bounced toward her, Evelyn instinctively stepped back, bumping into a table. Her face went pale, and a wave of fear and panic surged in her eyes. "Take it away," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't like dogs." Rebecca's face fell when she heard those words. "Matteo, is Ms. Walsh still mad at me over what happened last time? If that's the case, I'll just leave so I don't intrude on you too." As she spoke, she turned to leave. Matteo quickly grabbed her arm and frowned at Evelyn. "She meant well, Eve. Don't you love animals? Just take it." Seeing the displeasure in his eyes, Evelyn clenched her hands tightly and turned to his assistant, Zachary Warner, instead. "Mr. Warner, I'm wearing heels, so it's inconvenient for me to hold the puppy. Could you take care of it for me?" The people around them started making snide remarks again, mocking her for being ungrateful and acting too high and mighty. Matteo also assumed she was deliberately giving Rebecca a hard time. His expression darkened as he led Rebecca inside. The party quickly emptied out, leaving Evelyn alone. She poured herself a glass of water and took a slow sip, trying to calm the panic and anxiety in her chest. She used to love dogs, but 5 years ago, on a stormy night when the power went out, Matteo had come down with a high fever. She ran out into the rain to find help. A neighbor's guard dog had chased her the whole way, tearing a chunk of flesh from her calf. Despite the pain, she forced herself to bring a doctor back. Only after confirming that Matteo was safe did she finally take care of her own injury. Since then, she had developed a deep fear of dogs. However, to keep him from worrying, she had never told him about it. Even now, through the fabric of her dress, She could still feel the outline of that old scar. The guests at the party were all social climbers, reading the room and adjusting their attitudes accordingly. Seeing how Matteo was acting, they no longer bothered hiding their disdain toward Evelyn. When it was time for the cake cutting, everyone surrounded Rebecca instead, as if she were the one celebrating a birthday. Matteo, finally in a better mood, called Evelyn over to blow out the candles. She walked up in silence, just about to make a wish, when Rebecca suddenly gasped in excitement. "Oh wow, what a coincidence! Ms. Walsh, you and Elmo share the same birthday. Why don't we celebrate together?" The moment those words left her mouth, the room filled with stifled laughter. Seeing the challenge in Rebecca's eyes, Evelyn dug her nails into her palms. She took a slow breath, her voice carrying a cold edge. "In that case, let the puppy blow out the candles. Everyone can sing for it instead. I won't get in the way." As she turned to leave, Matteo's temple twitched in frustration. His voice dropped into a warning tone as he called after her. "Eve, this party was thrown for your birthday. If you leave now, what kind of message does that send?" Evelyn ignored him and kept walking toward the door. Finally losing his patience, Matteo caught up to her, grabbed her wrist, and leaned in to whisper something in her ear before pushing her back toward the cake. "Don't make a scene. Everyone here is part of the elite circle. If you storm out like this and the Gallagher family hears about it, they'll be even more against us." Against them? What was there to be against? Hadn't he already married Rebecca? Then the cheerful tune of Happy Birthday filled the room. Evelyn forced a faint smile, but she stood there like a lifeless statue, her expression void of joy. Then out of nowhere, someone picked up the puppy and shoved it into her arms. A shiver ran down her spine, and goosebumps broke out across her skin. Halfway through the song, the restless puppy wriggled free and jumped down. It bolted forward, knocking over the towering champagne display. The cascading glasses came crashing down straight toward Evelyn and Rebecca. Screams echoed through the hall as the shattered glass reflected in Evelyn's widened pupils. She watched frozen, as Matteo instinctively pulled Rebecca into his arms and shielded her. Meanwhile, glass shards and champagne rained down on Evelyn. A sharp sting shot through her shoulder as broken glass cut into her skin, leaving a long, bloody gash. Blood trickled down, staining her already soaked white dress with a deep red. She collapsed onto the floor with a muffled groan, cold sweat breaking out across her forehead. Hearing the sound, Matteo turned back. He saw her injured and was about to walk toward her when Rebecca suddenly screamed. "Ah, Matteo, Elmo scratched me. What if I get rabies?" Matteo's eyes flickered to the small, barely visible scratch on her ankle. He hesitated for a brief moment, then gave Zachary a quick order. "Take Eve to the hospital to get her wound treated." And with that, he hurried off with Rebecca. The other guests followed suit, not missing the chance to get in a few more jabs before leaving. "Elmo, Eve. Ms. Walsh sure has a knack for picking names. Look at her now. Doesn't she just look like a stray dog? Don't insult Elmo. He's adorable, unlike some desperate mutt trying to climb the social ladder." Every single word cut through Evelyn like a blade. She looked down at herself, drenched in champagne, covered in cuts, humiliated beyond words. Her nose burned, and tears welled up in her eyes. The birthday banner above her swayed before finally falling, landing right in front of her. She picked it up, looking around at the now empty, chaotic venue. Finally, with no one left to see her break, her tears fell freely. And just like that, her 23rd birthday ended in ruins. It was the early hours of the morning when Evelyn finally dragged her exhausted body home. The moment she turned on the lights, her phone buzzed several times. It was a message from Rebecca. "You've been liking all my social media posts, so you must already know that Matteo and I are legally married, right? He also promised me a wedding in Maui. I saw the venue plans. It's absolutely grand. Every single detail is exactly what we used to dream about when we were younger. I can't believe he still remembers after all these years. I should also thank you. If it weren't for you, Matteo wouldn't have regained his sight. Really, I owe you for taking care of my husband for 7 whole years." Reading the blatant mockery, Evelyn didn't even have the energy to be angry anymore. She went straight to her bedroom, lay down, and fell into a deep sleep. That night, Matteo still didn't come home. The only thing he sent was a text message. "Eve, I still have some things to take care of. Is your injury serious? If it hurts too much, let me know, and I'll come back right away." Evelyn stared at the words on the screen, her eyes flickering with emotion. After a long moment, she finally typed out a short reply. "Don't bother. Matteo, from now on, I won't need you anymore," she thought to herself. Once the wound on her shoulder had scabbed over, Evelyn returned alone to the Gallagher family's old estate. Back when Matteo was blind, this was where they had lived together, just the two of them. She grabbed a shovel and walked to the lush peach tree in the yard. Beneath it, buried deep in the soil, was the time capsule they had made together on Matteo's 18th birthday. She dug it up. The metal box was rusted, and condensation had formed inside the sealed glass jar. She pulled out the folded paper stars one by one, unfolding them carefully. The first note revealed her own handwriting. "I wish for Matteo to see the world again. I wish Matteo a safe and happy life. I wish to always stay by Matteo's side." Every single wish had been about him. Some had come true. Some would never come true, not in this lifetime. Next, she unfolded the other note. It was Matteo's wish. "I wish to regain my sight. I wish for Becky to be well." Every word was about him and Rebecca, not a single one about her dada, so that was the truth. He had never resented Rebecca for leaving him. He had willingly taken on the suffering of that accident for her. Without hesitation, without regret, a bitter smile curled on Evelyn's lips. She crumpled up her own wish and tossed it into the drain. Then, she reached up and unfastened the necklace around her neck. That it was the first gift Matteo had ever brought her. It was purchased with the money he earned from his first business deal after returning to the Gallagher family. She had felt guilty that he had spent so much on it, but he had only pulled her into his arms and kissed her endlessly. "Eve, they say it's lonely at the top, but as long as you're with me, I'll have the courage to keep climbing. This is just a necklace. One day, everything I have, including myself, will belong to you." She buried the necklace, along with everything that tied her to the past. After filling in the hole, Evelyn turned back toward the house, but just as she reached the front door, she ran into Matteo and Rebecca. The surprise in his eyes was clear when he saw her standing there. "Eve, what are you doing here?" Evelyn didn't answer. Instead, she threw the question back at him. "What about you? What are you two doing here?" Before Matteo could speak, Rebecca smiled and chimed in. "It's been a while since I last heard Matteo play the piano. He said the piano was still in the old house, so we came to get it. Ms. Walsh, you know this place well. Why don't you show us the way?" Without waiting for Evelyn's response, she grabbed her arm and pulled her into the house. A flood of memories surged through Evelyn's mind the moment she pushed open the door. Everything in the room was exactly the same as the day they had left. Not a single thing had changed. "Eve, do you remember when we—" "I don't." Evelyn lowered her head, her voice barely audible. Matteo froze for a second, then pointed toward a brick model in the corner. "Didn't we put this in the study after we finished building it? Why is it here?" Evelyn didn't follow his gaze. Her voice was calm and indifferent. "You couldn't see back then. A lot of your memories must feel like a blur, like illusions that are all mixed up." It was just like how she had once believed that Matteo loved her. But in reality, what he felt for her had only been a mirage. She was something he clung to in desperation. Because he had been blind, he had relied on touch to navigate his world. She had been like a walking cane to him, a guide, a necessity. That was why he had thought she was important. But once he regained his sight, he could do whatever he wanted. And just like that, she became irrelevant. She had believed that their years of companionship would be enough to carry them through any storm. But in the end, it was nothing more than an illusion. It was just a dream that had crumbled into emptiness. A fleeting sadness crossed Evelyn's face, and Matteo felt a tightness in his chest, that he wanted to ask her what was wrong. But before he could, she turned away and walked toward the balcony. "The piano is in the last room down the hall. You can go there yourselves." As the sound of their footsteps faded into the distance, Evelyn sat down in a rocking chair and slowly closed her eyes. Before long, the bright afternoon sky darkened. Heavy clouds rolled in, and soon, the first drops of rain began to fall. She got up and went back to the living room, just in time to hear the sound of a piano playing from a distance. That it was the first piano piece she had ever heard in her life. A lover's dream. As she listened, she felt as if she had been transported back to that summer when she was 10 years old. Without realizing it, she followed the melody. Through the window, she saw Matteo and Rebecca sitting at the piano, their hands moving in perfect harmony as they played a duet. Even after all these years, their connection hadn't faded in the slightest. Their synchronization was as flawless as ever. 7 years had passed. Yet the way Matteo looked at her was still filled with deep, unwavering affection. This was how much Matteo loved Rebecca, that he loved her enough to hold on to that love for 7 whole years, even after she had abandoned him. Of course, they were both born into privilege. Him, the golden boy of the Gallagher family. Her, a shining star of high society. On the other hand, Evelyn was just the daughter of a maid. Why had she ever dared to step into a world that wasn't hers? Why had she ever thought she could claim something that had never belonged to her? If she could go back in time, she would never have fallen for Matteo at first sight. She would never have secretly loved him, and she would never have thrown away everything just to take care of him for 7 long years. The music gradually faded into silence. At some point, Rebecca's hand slid over Matteo's, slowly tracing upward. Through the window, Evelyn saw her wrap her arms around his shoulders, leaning in to press her lips against his. "Matteo, I know you still love me." At that moment, Evelyn could take no more. She turned and walked away. The rain poured down harder and harder, drenching her completely. Her mind was blank, lost in a storm of emotions. 1 second, she felt like a withered weed clinging to the edge of a cliff. The next, she felt like a lone boat capsized by a relentless tide. She was rootless and directionless, drifting aimlessly. Even her tears vanished into the rain, leaving no trace behind. When Evelyn got home, she pulled out a suitcase and started packing up the last of her things. She kept busy until the early hours of the morning. Matteo still hadn't come back, but she no longer cared. The next day, Evelyn went to the immigration office to collect all her documents. On the way back, she booked a flight for that afternoon. As soon as the car pulled up to the house, she saw a Maybach parked in the driveway. Instinctively, she quickened her pace. The moment she stepped into the bedroom, she saw Matteo standing beside her suitcase, as if about to open it. Panic surged through her, and she blurted out, "Weren't you with Rebecca? Why are you back?" Matteo froze. Slowly, he turned around, and for the first time, there was anger in his eyes. He walked up to her, exasperation clear in his voice. "Eve, what are you overthinking this time? I already told you. I have nothing to do with Rebecca anymore. Nothing to do with her anymore?" Yet, he married her to protect her. Evelyn let out a tearful laugh, but didn't expose his lie. "Then I must have misunderstood." Seeing no change in her expression, Matteo visibly relaxed. "There's dinner at the Gallagher estate tonight. My family has finally agreed that I can bring you home with me." Evelyn was stunned. Arnold Gallagher and Caroline agreed. Seeing her reaction, Matteo reached out and ruffled her hair before handing her a black credit card. "Eve, don't worry. One day, I'll make sure they accept you, so that you can stand beside me with your head held high. I'm exhausted right now. Why don't you let Mr. Warner take you shopping for a dress?" Evelyn stared at the card for a long moment before finally taking it. "You should rest. I'll go by myself." Matteo rubbed his temples and nodded. Evelyn slipped the documents she had picked up earlier into her bag. Matteo lay and quickly fell into a deep sleep. For a moment, she just stood there, looking at his face. It was so much like when he was 17. For the last time, she reached out, gently tracing his brow. Perhaps sensing her touch in his sleep, Matteo grabbed her hand and murmured, "Becky, don't mess around." Hearing that, Evelyn let out a silent laugh. She pulled her hand away, picked up her suitcase and walked downstairs. The house was quiet. The staff were all on their lunch break. No one noticed her leaving. On the way to the airport, Evelyn blocked and deleted all of Matteo's contacts. Then she deleted all her social media accounts. The airport was crowded with people rushing back and forth. She made one final call as she watched the flight schedule change on the screen. "Mrs. Gallagher, I'm at the airport as promised." I'll be boarding soon. On the other end, Caroline sounded pleased, her voice carrying undisguised satisfaction. Good. As long as you don't show up at tonight's dinner, the rest of the money will be wired to your account. See you, Evelyn. Listening to the boarding announcement over the speakers, Evelyn shook her head. No, Mrs. Gallagher. It's not see you. It's goodbye forever. She ended the call, tossed her phone into the trash, and walked toward the gate. She walked ahead with steady steps without hesitation.